You. Arsenal have agreed a £75 million fee with Newcastle for their captain, Bruno Guimarães. The Newcastle captain has been given permission to travel for a medical. Guimarães told Newcastle bosses earlier this summer that he wanted to join Arsenal if a suitable offer arrived, and it seems that suitable offer has come in. It is £75 million. That is the fee that has been agreed with Newcastle for Bruno Guimarães to become an Arsenal player. John, your reaction to this news?
Well, it's the worst kept secret, isn't it, in the Premier League? I think personal terms may have been agreed about 3 months ago. So for the clubs to finally agree is massive. You know, this is a huge transfer, absolutely huge. And for me, it's threefold. It's obviously Arsenal, statement transfer, somebody who can come in and bolster with top-class, world-class reinforcements in midfield. Turns them into a powerhouse. The impact that this has on Newcastle, losing their talisman. You know, Bruno has been the best player in Newcastle since he's been there, really. You know, hit the ground running, been massive. And then from a player's perspective, it shows we talk about ambition with Salah. This shows ambition. Arsenal are a club who are obviously won the league last year, just missed out on the Champions League. They want silverware. And they've backed Arteta. And Arteta must be very, very happy with this. And Bruno must be thinking, I've got a chance of a Premier League medal, maybe a Champions League medal with Arsenal.
We'll get onto the Newcastle side of things in just a moment, but let's just continue going down the Arsenal theme. And I'm interested there by what you said. You know, you said this is a big signing. You know, some people are sort of looking at it and going, well, why aren't they going for, you know, Vinny Jr. or going for a left winger, a big left winger, Barkley, etc. first? But in your opinion, does this signing take Arsenal to the next level?
I think it creates, if you look at their midfield now, and we can talk about Manchester City, who are arguably their biggest rivals for the Premier League. The bookies would argue that probably. With Anderson and Rodri and Jerky and the talent that Man City have got. Now with Rice and Bruno alongside him, they really do have a class midfield. And the depth now, we saw last season, we saw in the World Cup with Declan Rice. He was absolutely shot playing all the games that he did. Now the manager has the option, does he play them together? Does he play them on his own? Does he rest Rice? Rice has been obviously magnificent for Arsenal since he signed. An awful lot of money, but he lived up to the hype, you know, and he ultimately made the difference for them winning the Premier League. So I think it's a big signing for Arsenal.
Chris, how will this affect the Arsenal midfield going forward, do you think, and how Arteta juggles all of his resources?
I mean, Arsenal's spine now is just ridiculous, isn't it? You talk about the depth they've got. Miles Lewis-Skelly at the end of last season was playing fantastically well. Started a Champions League final. Zubimendi, just, you know, a World Cup now on his resume. It dropped off towards the end of last season, but I think the rest that he would have had will mean that he's raring to go. So now you've got who can play in the 10, Odegaard and Eze, unbelievable players. You've got the two first choice now of Guimarães and Rice. Imagine lining up against them two next season. That is a world-class midfield. And to back up, you've got Lewis-Skelly and Zubimendi. If Arsenal weren't favourites for the title already, which I think they were, by the way, they 100% are now. And if they can add that left winger, which just seems like the last piece of the puzzle, if they can add that star quality, that goal scorer, that creator, it's bad news for the rest of the Premier League, I think, but because the depth is just unbelievable.
John, what do you think about the fee? Because we were hearing that it might take something north of 80 million, but it seems that it could be a fee of 75 million. Is that a good deal for Arsenal? How is it for Newcastle, that?
I think it is. I think if you look at Anderson, and I think if you look at Rice, you know, we just mentioned, north of 100 million, to get a player who's certainly has a reputation, Premier League proven for many, many years, a true leader. So it adds an awful lot for you know, £75 million. It's an awful lot of money. But in today's, you know, this transfer market is crazy. So for 75 million, I think it's good business.
It's almost like a few weeks ago you would have said, this is fair. But now, because of the last few weeks that we've had, like you said, with Anderson, with Mateus Fernandes, with Morgan Rogers, you go, and anything under 100 million actually looks quite good value. Like I said, before the World Cup, you go 75 million.
I mean, he's older though, isn't he? He's 29.
That is true. And Tonali is another one who went for 100 million as well, also younger. But this is Arsenal's strategy actually at the moment. They want to win now. They have been signing younger players, but you look at a lot of their business recently. Last season, Gyökeres is someone to come in now. Bruno Guimarães, he's not going to need any time to settle in. This is one of the Premier League's most consistent midfielders, and Arsenal are willing to. They're not going to make money on Bruno Guimarães.
Yeah.
But he might get them closer to the Champions League. He might help them retain the Premier League. He's going to be a good pivot with Rice. He's going to be someone who can let Rice rest.
Yeah.
So Arsenal aren't looking towards the future. They're looking at tomorrow.
Right. What about from Newcastle's point of view then? How much of a blow is this? Because it's not just another big player. It's your club captain. It's a player who's got an amazing connection with the fans. Do you think this one will hurt even more than Gordon and Tonali?
It's a massive blow. It's a massive blow for Newcastle. It's the equivalent of a Rice leaving Arsenal. It's the equivalent of a Bruno Fernandes leaving Manchester United. That's how big it is for Newcastle. And obviously, that's you've got to add the fact that they've lost the manager. Okay, they've lost Tonali as well. So they've lost arguably the two best players, certainly the two best midfield players. They have raised an awful lot of money. They haven't been particularly active in the transfer market so far. So they do have a war chest to go and replace him. So I think I think there'll be a lot of agents knocking on the door of Newcastle, knowing how much money they now have to spend and how much they need it.
Well, look, Newcastle, clearly there are some financial restraints, and we know it's very hard for them to compete with clubs that have a bigger revenue. It's almost impossible. But I just wonder whether they had to let go of so many big players at the same time, because there's a lot of money coming in here now, but doing it all in one transfer window, those three big players, are you really concerned that that's just too much to lose in one go? Could it have been staggered in some way?
Potentially. I think with Bruno leaving, I think that Eddie Howe isn't daft. He understood what was going on. He understood the restrictions that he had as a manager, and I think that's fed into the players. I think they've kept hold of some important players, but it is a big hole that they have to fill. And I am a little bit worried. They have a lot of quality. They still have a lot of quality going forward. But that midfield area is a massive concern because those guys were literally the engine room, and Bruno was Newcastle United.
All right. A reminder of the big breaking news. Arsenal have agreed a fee of £75 million with Newcastle for Bruno Guimarães, and it's been agreed by Newcastle that he can travel and have his medical. A lot more on that to come. Arsenal have got their midfielder. Manchester United have also brought in two this summer. We are talking United's transfer business with John next.
Arsenal may have just completed the signing that changes the entire Premier League title race. But the biggest twist is not the £75 million fee. It is what Bruno Guimarães' arrival could mean for the midfield that has already taken Mikel Arteta's side to the top of English football. After weeks of negotiations, rejected proposals and growing pressure from the players' camp, Fabrizio Romano has now delivered the words Arsenal supporters were waiting for: Bruno Guimarães to Arsenal. Here we go, an agreement is understood to be in place with Newcastle United for a fee worth around £75 million, while personal terms with the Brazilian midfielder had already been settled. The next steps are the medical, the paperwork, and the official club announcement. But this is not simply another expensive Arsenal signing. This deal could force Arteta to make one of the most difficult tactical decisions of his reign. Guimarães has been one of Newcastle's most influential players, their captain, their emotional leader, and the midfielder trusted to control matches when the pressure is at its highest. Newcastle wanted to keep him and drove a hard bargain, but the player's desire to move to North London appears to have changed the direction of the negotiations. The breakthrough reportedly came over the structure of the payment. Arsenal are expected to pay the £75 million fee across a 2-year period, giving Newcastle the certainty they wanted while allowing the champions to manage another major investment. For Arsenal, the attraction is obvious. Guimarães brings aggression, personality, Premier League experience, and the ability to receive the ball under pressure. He can dictate the tempo from deep, carry possession forward, and compete physically in matches where Arsenal have previously been dragged into midfield battles. Now imagine him next to Declan Rice. Rice provides power, recovery runs and control over huge spaces. Guimarães offers invention, bite and the confidence to demand the ball in dangerous areas. On paper, it looks like one of the strongest midfield partnerships in the league. But here comes the twist. Where does this leave Martin Zubimendi? The Spanish midfielder was central to Arsenal's title-winning campaign, but he appeared physically exhausted during the closing stages of the season. Guimarães is being described as support and competition, yet Arsenal do not normally spend £75 million on a player simply to sit on the bench. Arteta could use all three in the biggest matches. Zubimendi could operate as the deepest midfielder, with Rice and Guimarães playing ahead of him. That would give Arsenal control, intensity and technical quality. But it could also affect the role of Martin Odegaard and completely reshape the balance of the team. Alternatively, Guimarães could replace Zubimendi in certain matches, allowing Rice to play with more freedom. That would create fierce competition inside a squad that has already proven it can win the title. This is why the signing feels bigger than the transfer fee. Arsenal are not buying emergency cover. They are creating a midfield where even established stars will have to fight for their positions every week. There is also a painful Newcastle side to this story. Guimarães became a symbol of the club's rise after arriving from Lyon. He connected with the supporters, embraced the city and helped change expectations at St James Park. Losing him is not just the loss of a talented midfielder, it is the departure of a captain during a summer already filled with major change. Newcastle will now face an enormous challenge. They must replace his quality, his leadership and his relationship with the supporters. And every selling club will know they have £75 million coming in. For Arsenal, however, this is a statement. After ending their long wait for the Premier League title, they are not protecting what they have built. They are attempting to make the squad even more powerful. The deal is not officially announced yet, and the medical and final documents still matter. But once Romano says here we go and an agreement is reported between the clubs, the direction of travel is usually clear. Bruno Guimarães is moving closer to the Emirates, and his arrival could trigger a tactical transformation that nobody expected. Will Arteta build a new super midfield around Guimarães and Rice? Could Zubimendi lose his guaranteed starting place? Or will all three play together and make Arsenal even harder to stop? Let us know what Arsenal's strongest midfield should be in the comments, and subscribe for the latest Arsenal news and transfer updates.